You are watching this video because you know that you already are all that you desired to be. Thus, you already have what you desired. Thus, I titled today's conversation Mind Map. You manifest them by not trying to manifest them. By not trying, by not wanting, by not needing, by not waiting, everything spontaneously happens. Spontaneously, ideal harmonious relationships emerge as personal relationships, friendships, business relationships, romantic relationships, family relationships. This conversation is a further exploration on the clients that have been sharing with me that this has been their experience, as it has been my experience, as it has been your experience, that you realize you can do nothing to create the perfect reality. Because you forgot the thoughts that suggest that reality is not perfect as it is now. By remaining as you are, abiding in that still I am presence. Without any techniques, no need for this or that concept, as that would imply you need to do something or think something to get what you want, which is illusory. Because you already have what you want. You are already that. There is only God. Only God alone exists. So thus, God needs no practice, method, technique to try to be God through any of these means to experience the reality of God. And what spontaneously manifests then is harmonious relationships. They just happen. Because there is no resistance generated by the trying, the wanting, the needing, the waiting. Everything happens spontaneously as you know who you are. You know who you are, abiding in that still I am presence. There is no thought of waiting for this person to appear before you can experience love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, because you are that already. You are that love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And why is there no trying, wanting, needing, waiting? Well, practically speaking, it permeates the body. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment permeates the body, permeates the mind, and manifests as harmonious relationships spontaneously. People that maybe you haven't spoken to in a while just spontaneously appear. Practical example, I ran into a number of people that I haven't seen in a few years. I tend to talk with people wherever I am, and I'll start a conversation, conversations flow, and I might not see them for a while. Then all of a sudden, they show up and they're saying the same things that we talk about on this channel. They're saying things like, oh, I realized that I was trying to do this or that in order to get. I stopped trying. Then interestingly, all these things that I once desired happen. Everyone has come to the realization now that ultimately only God alone exists, and God plays all roles perfectly. They manifest by not trying to manifest them. So what has also been reported to me by a number of clients, that these team members that fit the ideal role in their businesses spontaneously appear. Business partners, clients, etc., spontaneously appear. That is reality. I asked them, what are you doing? They say, I do nothing. That's what I mean by you can do nothing to create the perfect reality. They forgot the thoughts that suggest that reality is not already perfect by remaining as they are, abiding in that still I am presence. It is that same still I am presence. Abiding as we are, we appear to be in perfect harmony. Friendships, romantic relationships, family relationships, business relationships, etc. So, manifestation without effort is the nature of God. God needs no practice, method, technique in any shape or form in order to be God. Manifestation without effort is the nature of God, and as ultimately only God alone exists, and by that it is meant specifically, truth is undeniable. As you acknowledge that you transcend the thoughts of limitation, the appearances that seem to suggest that you need to do this or that in order to get. You need to try to be, want to be, need to be, waiting for this and that in order to experience happiness, which spontaneously happens by simply existing. As you know this, you realize that, wait, why was I trying to do these things in order to manifest? And then I can be happy. Why was I engaging in this kind of illusory thinking? Well, that I that was thinking that way, the illusory thinker, as we discussed recently in the video on Sunday, if you haven't seen it, I'll link in the description to it, is not you. How do you know it's not you? Well, as you abide as that still I am presence, there is no illusory thoughts suggesting you need to try this or that technique, practice, method. There's no thoughts of wanting, needing, waiting as well. None of those thoughts are there. And also, in that still I am presence, there is no thinker of those thoughts. So not only are those thoughts not there, there is no thinker of those thoughts. So in other words, you weren't trying to get rid of those thoughts because you thought that by getting rid of those thoughts, you can manifest the perfect relationships. You were not trying to get rid of the thoughts. Those thoughts do not appear, abiding as that still I am presence. If there are thoughts, as articulated in Philippians 4:8, they are whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are lovely. So thoughts of love, thoughts of happiness, thoughts of peace, thoughts of bliss, thoughts of fulfillment, they spontaneously appear in mind. You just automatically imagine these harmonious relationships. So manifestation thus without effort, without trying inwardly and outwardly to be, because that's illusory. You already are. Manifestation without effort is the nature of God. The act of trying implies distance from what already is. Everything is perfect as it is now. You know that it is perfect as it is now, as you abide as that still I am presence. And everything spontaneously happens. If there are thoughts appearing in mind, they are, as articulated in Philippians 4:8, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report. One could say then you really think for yourself, because you acknowledge you are not that thinker of illusory thoughts in mind. The illusory thoughts and that illusory thinker dissolve. The illusory thinker is referred to in the Bible as the old man. The old man may think that they need to do this or that in order to get. You already are. And again, not because I said so. You know that you are. You know that you are undeniably that which you desire to be. You have what you desire. As you exist, you found it in existence. You know exactly what it is that I'm talking about. Because you realize that God needs no practice, method, confirmation bias, appearance to be this way or that way. Thus, there is no wanting, needing, waiting, or technique required to be the way you are. And spontaneously, it happens. The feeling of love, the feeling of happiness, the feeling of peace, the feeling of bliss, the feeling of fulfillment. By doing nothing to get that love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. You do nothing to get what you desire. It happens. It's given to you by grace. Not only is it experienced in the body, it's not like you're trying to get this feeling of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment in order to get. It spontaneously arises, and the appearances of that, the manifestations of that, happen as harmonious relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, business relationships, etc. Even relationship with yourself. You can be happy, you can be in love, you can be in perfect bliss, you can be in perfect peace, you can be completely fulfilled with or without people who appear to be manifestations of that fulfillment, of that love, of that happiness, of that peace, of that bliss. So there's no preference. It needs to be this way or that way in order to be. Thus, by not trying to be, you know certainly that you are all that you desire to be. You have all that you desire. And spontaneously, you manifest them without trying to manifest them because you are fulfilled. The being I am never tries. It just is. So the illusory thinker may have thought, I need to do this or that in order to be as I am. I need to do this practice, this method, this technique in order to be as I am, and no shame and condemnation. Although that may have been helpful. What is pointed to here is all those practices, methods, techniques point to the fact that you are already fulfilled. You already are all that you desire to be, so you drop them. There is no longer a need to do this practice, this method, this technique to shift into this frequency, go into this vibration, go into this state, etc. Because you already are all that you desire to be. You have what you desire. You acknowledge that existence is. The being I am never tries to be. It is. And thus being as you are, everything happens spontaneously for you. Manifestation flows from that still awareness without mental interference. That is because the only obstacles are imagined. You stop imagining these obstacles. You stop trying to get rid of these obstacles because you know certainly they are illusory. As you abide as that still I am presence, there is no thought of obstacle. And you did nothing to abide as that still I am presence. You took the direct path or no path to be as you are. And you witness everything happening spontaneously. That is what I mean by you manifest them by not trying to manifest them. Everything happens spontaneously. Also, what has been reported is people tend to meet people spontaneously that reflect the being they are. So, by that it is meant specifically, you exist as you are now, existing as all that you desire to be, having all that you desire, all that love, all that happiness, all that peace, all that bliss, all that fulfillment. And as mentioned, the only obstacle is imagined. So we say beyond what I can imagine right now. Yet I may imagine it. It flashes upon my mind's eye, and people appear to echo what I imagine spontaneously. And let's say if I don't imagine, because there's no need to imagine, what happens is spontaneously these relationships appear to be in perfect harmony for no reason. So the individual might have thought, I needed to do this or that in order to get. Now they realize they can do nothing and everything happens. And by that I mean it's not like they're not walking around and talking with people and going about their day-to-day activities physically. We can accurately say there is no trying, wanting, needing, waiting manifested in their behaviors. Everything flows to be in perfect harmony. If they see someone that they're interested in starting a conversation with, they walk over and start a conversation because they're not trying to get something out of that person. They're not wanting anything out of that person. They're not needing anything out of that person. They're not waiting for this person to say this or that to suggest that they are love, they are happiness, they are peace, they are bliss, they are fulfillment. And then they can experience love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. It is not dependent on appearances. How do you know? Well, you know as you abide as that still I am present, spontaneously for no reason. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment permeates mind, permeates the body. You walk over to start the conversation completely fulfilled. And the conversation flows to be in perfect harmony. Also, as people come and speak with you, start conversations with you, again, you're not trying, wanting, needing, waiting, neither are they. Interesting. How interesting, right? When the illusions of separation dissolve, all of a sudden, and by the way, it was always like that. It was always like that. It just might not have appeared to be that way. But you know who you are now. Spontaneously, it happens as mutual harmony. In other words, they're not trying, you're not trying. You're not wanting, they're not wanting. You're not needing, they're not needing. They're not waiting, you're not waiting. Because the only obstacle is imagined. So I stop imagining those illusions of separation. Because I know certainly that ultimately only God alone exists. You know certainly that ultimately only God alone exists. And only God alone plays all roles without the need to try, want, need, wait, etc. And also, prior to starting the conversation, you do nothing to prepare yourself to start the conversation with them. You don't do any special practice or method or technique or anything. You just walk over and start the conversation because there's no need to do these things. What may have been helpful to point to truth is no longer needed. So thus then, just as there is no effort as you walk over and start the conversation, no effort. The effort is generated by trying, wanting, needing, waiting, and that effort does not exist. Does not exist to you, just as you walk over and start the conversation. Also, it is acknowledged inwardly that there's no need to try, want, need, wait for anything inwardly. There are none of these thoughts, more specifically put, none of these thoughts appearing in mind. And the conversation just happens. It spontaneously happens. And as mentioned, you may start the conversation with them. Everything flows. They may start the conversation with you. And you don't think that one way is better than another way. Because that would imply that there was resistance towards one way, or it's one way versus another way. This way is better than that way is better than this way. It happens. It may appear as them coming up to you and starting a conversation. You manifest them by not trying to manifest them. It may appear as you starting a conversation with them. You manifest them by not trying to manifest them. There is no thought of this way being better than another way. Everything happens perfectly as it does. Because thinking that one way is better than another is just imagining another obstacle. It needs to happen this way, it needs to happen that way, this way versus that way. Or another illusory thought. The old man may look around to see what other people are doing and then imagine based on what other people are doing to determine what they should do, which is illusory. Everything happens without interference. Why do I need to do this or that? I could just be. I could just be as I am. And thus, there's no illusory thinker looking around to see what other people are thinking, because that's imagined. As I had mentioned, what spontaneously appears in mind, spontaneously is imagined, which is awakened imagination, is imagining lovingly. Imagining peace, imagining fulfillment, imagining love, imagining happiness, imagining bliss. You don't try to imagine these things. They spontaneously are imagined and they appear to reflect the being you are. Not illusory being, real being, as ultimately only God alone exists. So, to look around to see what people are doing before you could be is to suggest that you are not already that. Because why do you need people to appear a particular way or that way, or to suggest to you or give you permission in order to be? You are beyond that. You know that you are beyond that. You know certainly that reality is perfect as it is now. Manifestation flows from the still awareness without mental interference. In other words, I don't need to do this or that in order to be. It's spontaneous. True power is not forced, it simply is. You don't do this or that in order to get power. You don't do this or that in order to be powerful. True power simply is. As God alone exists, playing all roles, true power appears as everything rearranging itself around being. They just appear to be in harmony with you. You appear to be in harmony with them. See, the illusory thinker, the doer, the illusory thinker who deludes themselves to think that they are the doer, is trying to be, is trying to do this or that in order to be. And if it does not appear the way that the illusory thinker thinks it should be, needs to be, has to be, then they experience lack of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. As you don't identify with that illusory thinker, you are not trying to be. You acknowledge being is fulfilled. I am fulfilled. And you also acknowledge that there's only one being, I am. Thus, there's no you versus I versus you, us versus them. Illusory. It's not like you're saying, I have to change their mind, this versus that, us versus them. We are not in harmony. Illusory. You manifest them by not trying to manifest them. There is no trying, wanting, needing, waiting, as you abide as you are. And you prove the point by abiding as you are, as that still I am presence. Everything happens. How great that the reality of God is as promised in the Bible, perfect as it is now. There's only the one being, I am. Thus we are in perfect harmony. How can I imagine that we are not in perfect harmony? How can you imagine that we are not in perfect harmony, as you know that ultimately there's only one being, the being I am. Those kinds of imaginal activities, those imaginal obstacles are not there in mind. They belong to what the Bible refers to as the old man. And as you are not the old man, as you abide as that still I am presence, you know truth, that you are not the old man. Those thoughts that suggest I need to do this or that in order to be fulfilled, they need to appear in my life in order to be fulfilled, all of those illusory thoughts dissolve. Along with the illusory thinker, they dissolve because you know that you are not the old man. There is no thoughts of such in mind, abiding as you are in that still I am presence. Pure consciousness is perfect as it is now, so what thoughts could suggest otherwise in mind? The illusory thinker is known as the illusory thinker. You really think for yourself. Again, Philippians 4:8, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report. If you imagine people, you imagine them that way, not because you try to imagine them that way in order for them to be that way. They are that way. You may imagine them to be that way spontaneously. You imagine them to be in harmonious relationships with you. They appear to be in harmonious relationships with you, echoing the same thing that you imagined. Yet if you don't imagine them to be that particular way, they still appear to be in perfect harmony, as only God alone exists, playing all roles to be in harmony. There's only the one being I am. Thus, you and I are not two. We speak of the same self. You don't need to become anything, you already are. So a person may try to do this or that in order to become something, but that's illusory. That illusory person trying to do something in order to be who they already are is no longer there as you abide as that still I am presence, as you are, perfect as you are. And love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment permeates mind, permeates body. How does it permeate mind? You naturally manifest whatsoever things are true, lovely, good report. It's not like you're trying to think those thoughts. They emerge in mind. You imagine automatically, awakened imagination. Why is it awakened imagination? Knowing who you are, you imagine the world to be as you are. It appears to be a perfect mirror reflection of the being you are. So the question to the old man is, who am I? The old man inquired, who am I? And the old man went inward to the source of I. And having gone inward to the source of I, the old man dissolved. And what emerged is the real I, the eyewitness of God, witnessing the true nature of reality, the love, the happiness, the peace, the bliss, fulfillment, perfectly as harmonious friendships, relationships, business relationships, romantic relationships, because ultimately only God alone exists. So they manifest spontaneously without trying to manifest them. The old man may have been doing this or that in order to manifest, and at times it seems to work. Yet, let's say, at times it didn't appear to work, the old man may shame and condemn themselves. As you acknowledge that you are not the old man, you acknowledge how illusory this kind of thinking is that belongs to the old man. And no shame, no condemnation towards the old man. You know that the old man is illusory by abiding as you are in that still I am presence. Those thoughts no longer appear in mind. That illusory thinker, which I thought, it was an I thought, I was, is not real. You know it's not real. Now you can be as you are, witnessing them manifest by not trying to manifest them. Because why would you want someone to be a particular way, this way, that way? That would suggest that reality is not perfect as it is now. Everything spontaneously happens. And just as they don't need to become anyone in order to be love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, you know that you don't need to become anything or anyone because you already are. Thus, they already are, as there is only one being, the being I am. To suggest being is imperfect is to suggest not knowing who you are. That kind of thinking belongs to the old man. Yet the old man inquired, who am I? Returned back to the source of I. I spring from the sure foundation, the being I am. So thus the real I emerges. The illusory I dissolves, which is sometimes referred to as the ignorant I. Why is it called the ignorant I? It's called the ignorant I because it looks outwardly. It tries to do this or that in order to be. It makes this or that attempts. Yet if the ignorant I was being honest with itself, it would know that sometimes it seems to work and sometimes it seems to not work. So the ignorant I gives up trying to do this and that by inquiring, who am I? Returns to the source being I am. And what emerges is the real I, the eyewitness of God, who sees no separation, who fulfills what was mentioned in Philippians 4:8. Whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think upon these things. And here's the interesting thing. It's not like you try to think upon those things. It naturally happens. The old man may try to think upon those things in order to get some outward result. And if it works, then it works. And if it doesn't work, they say it's not working, etc. Illusory. In order to get love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. As you acknowledge that you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, you know that you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, abiding as that still I am presence. You manifest them without trying to manifest them. To suggest being is imperfect, thus you need to do something in order to be perfect, is illusory thinking that you don't think anymore. Because you are not the old man. The old man thinks that this other person is not perfect, I'm going to try to fix them. It's illusory. They are not perfect, I'm going to try to fix myself. Illusory. That thinker dissolves, the illusory thoughts dissolve in the presence of God. In the presence of God, that illusory thinker is known to not be real. There are no illusory thoughts. There is no illusory thinker in the presence of God. What is the presence of God? Well, the presence of God, as articulated in the Bible, Exodus 3:14, I am that I am. Thus thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. It provides the key right then and there to what we're talking about here. You manifest them by not trying to manifest them. As you abide as that still I am presence. The presence of God. Illusions of lack of love, of happiness, of peace, of bliss, of fulfillment, and the corresponding appearances dissolve. And spontaneously what manifests is them, we could say. There ultimately is no other, but we could say them by not trying to manifest them. Not trying to fix them. Not trying to fix yourself. There's nothing to fix as you know who you are. You know that you are perfect as you are now. You know yourself to be that perfection. How do you know? You abide as you are, as that still I am presence. Nothing can appear to suggest otherwise. I trust you noticed this as well. This was also what's being reported, is it seems that nothing can suggest to them that they are not love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Thus, there's no thought that could suggest to you that you are not love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. If you do think, you think for yourself. Eyewitness of God. Whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good rapport. If there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think upon these things. But you're not trying to think upon these things. It happens because that's the natural way to think. It's the natural order of things. The natural order of the way of life is flow, so we can say the natural way of flow is in the flow, you manifest them by not trying to manifest them. You simply be as you are. To manifest them by not trying to manifest them. Nuanced point. So we have on my screen here the Robert Dill's logical levels. I like to use this to articulate the points. Now, we have on the top I, the eyewitness of God. Notice how you, who transcends the vision, that's what you can imagine yourself to be, the personal identity construct which the old man tries to form and reform in order to be, which naturally appears to get reformed. God does everything, is just what people point to and say, this is your identity. You're this person that likes this, you're like this person that likes that, then your interests are this, your interests are that. It just appears that way. Yet you are more than those thoughts. So this personal identity appears to transform. It happens. As we've been discussing, you automatically receive within the visions, flash upon your mind's eye. You don't try to imagine. You naturally imagine, effortlessly, like we talk about in our Neville Goddard conversations. If you haven't seen the recent one, I'll link a description to it on Sunday. You naturally imagine, awakened imagination. Everything appears to be perfectly as you imagine it to be, made visible through the five senses from imagination. And you're not trying to imagine them in order to get love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. They just appear spontaneously to reflect what you imagine them to be, which is perfect as they are now. So you imagine them to be perfect as they are now. And even if you don't know what that looks like, if it's not flashed upon your mind's eye, what does that look like in imagination? Like Steve Jobs said in his commencement speech, like in all matters of the heart, you know. You manifest them by not trying to manifest them. They spontaneously happen. They spontaneously happen through awakened imagination, and they spontaneously happen to manifest by doing nothing. Do nothing means you do nothing to be. You not try to be. You don't want to be. You don't need to be. You're not waiting to be. You know that I am. You do nothing to know that I am. Or we can also say, the direct path or no path to knowing who you are. Thus, you do nothing also to create the perfect reality, because creation is complete already, as it was in the beginning now and ever shall be, perfect as it is now. By abiding as you are, you forget the thoughts that suggest that reality is not already perfect, by simply abiding as you are, being as you are. Abiding as that still I am presence, beyond limitations, beyond these thoughts. And no technique is required to be as you are. You can do nothing to be as you are. You don't need to entertain special concepts of you that suggest you are this, that suggest you are that. Illusory. You don't identify with this or that concept. You are beyond. I am beyond these concepts. You do nothing to know who you are. And what naturally arises, what permeates the mind, what permeates the body, we can point to, not in a limited way. We can describe it as all that I desire to be, everything that I desired. Whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report. I naturally think upon these things. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. If I imagine, I just naturally imagine. I spontaneously imagine these wonderful, harmonious relationships, and they appear. Awakened imagination. You have forgotten the thoughts, the illusory obstacles that were once imagined by the old man. You no longer imagine these obstacles to be real because you know who you are. There are no illusory imaginal activities in mind that were generated by the old man. The old man is not real. Thus, you have forgotten the thoughts that suggest that reality is not perfect as it is now, by remaining as you are, abiding as that still I am presence. So, thus, identity appears to transform. True identity is you. There's no simpler way to say it other than you are that. Not because of this or that reason. Not because of this or that technique or concept or theory. You are being you, perfect as you are, not limited by techniques, concepts, theories. And you abiding as you are, it flashes. It may or may not flash. There's no bias. One way is better than another. The vision may flash upon the mind's eye. And it appears in form, the way you imagine. To prove the point, they appear to say the same thing that you imagine, and you weren't trying to imagine it. It happens. Or you may not imagine it. Yet, feeling is the secret. You feel love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, abiding as you are, and the manifestations of being are them, appearing to reflect the being you are. The perfect love, the perfect happiness, the perfect peace, the perfect bliss, the perfect fulfillment. And how do you know? You point to it and you say, oh, this is a loving relationship. This is a happy conversation. This is a blissful relationship, flow, etc. You may use these words to describe the experience. So all of these things appear to transform. The personal identity, the values and beliefs, the capabilities, for example, in skill cultivation. They naturally manifest. It's not like, for example, you play a sport because you're trying to prove that you're the best. You're trying to convince other people who are looking at you that if you play a particular way, then you are considered the best. Or at that point, you can experience happiness after they give you a particular body language or say a particular statement. That's not there. That's illusory. Those are imagined obstacles, which are not real. So they're not really obstacles. They're just generating resistance. They're generating the trying, wanting, needing, waiting, which is not needed. You can do nothing to create the perfect reality. Capabilities flow. Behaviors flow. Body language, voice tonality, what you say, etc. flows. Like that example I gave earlier about starting a conversation or someone starting a conversation with you. What you say, what you don't say, body language naturally flows. You're not trying to mimic someone else's body language, pretending to be someone in order to get. You don't even do this or that technique to get into a particular state prior to the interaction. You could say, if you would like, you already exist now in the perfect state of bliss. Existence is bliss. Existence is love. Existence is happiness. Existence is fulfillment. Existence is all that I desired. existence represents all that I desired to be, desired to have, therefore I am. Therefore we are. So behaviors flow. Environments flow as well. Today I may appear to be here, tomorrow I may appear to be there, but I don't try to force myself to be in this environment or that environment, or imagine myself to be in another environment to suggest that when I'm in that environment, then I can experience love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. It spontaneously happens. So we can actually go back to the start of the mind map here and say, you manifest perfect environments by not trying to manifest perfect environments. They spontaneously happen. See, we're speaking about what happens now for you as you acknowledge who you are. In the earlier stages, the environments that I was in, they were very troubling. They were very tormenting. I genuinely desired to get out of that environment. I no longer wanted to be in those particular circumstances. And through applying what we have been applying here over the years, since I started this channel and I had gotten out of these environments prior to starting this channel, I realized that everything that I was doing was in an attempt to be as I am. That's it. I didn't articulate it the way I'm articulating it now, back then. But I knew in my heart that what I truly desired was to be as I am. And I knew that inevitably I would get to that point where spontaneously everything would happen. And then at that point, I would not need to do this or that. It would just spontaneously happen. And here we are, sharing it together. We're at that point now. So there's no shame and condemnation for where I was before. There was a genuine desire to not be in those circumstances, to not be in those environments. And even if it did not appear that there was a way, I acknowledge, as I always teach, desire means having. Desire points to fulfillment. Desire means being. Had I had not known that back in those days, I may have been continuously identifying with thoughts of limitation. Now that I dissolved, what emerged is the real I, as it did for you as well. And as you know who you are now, the experience can be described differently, although it's pointing to the same thing. In the earlier stages, there was programming in mind that seemed to suggest, no, you need to do this or that and stay in this environment. It was confusing. There was confusion in mind. Yet I continue to honor the being I am. And then I started to notice the environments changing. I may end up in a different environment spontaneously, or the existing environments appear to change or partially change, and then I end up in a different environment. I don't consider one way better than another. All I know now is certainly what you know now is that everything happens as a result of being as you are spontaneously. So, although I got to the realization in this way that I've articulated all throughout the years, now I articulate the point very precisely. You exist as you are now in perfect harmony. You are already that which you desire to be. You already have what you desire. You don't need to do this or that in order to be. You don't need to apply this or that practice, do this or that technique, etc., in order to be. If you find it to be helpful, you certainly can, although you don't need to do that in order to be. So thus, there's no shame, no condemnation. Otherwise, I would be shaming and condemning myself back in the days, and that would not be helpful. Yet, desire pointed to being. And now you can do nothing to point to being because you already are. So, desire pointed to being in the earlier stages. Now, you could do nothing or need nothing to point to being because you know you already are. So we're at the point now where we can simply be. And what spontaneously happens, what naturally happens, is all these things appear to get rearranged. But I don't do it. I don't worry about it. I don't interfere with the process. I don't get involved with wanting, needing, waiting, seeing that these are all problems that need to be fixed. There's nothing to be fixed in being because I know that I am now. And as you know that you are, we can describe it this way as more effortless, more and more effortless. So what I did before and what I do now, although it appears differently, is the same thing. I just keep knowing who I am. I can know who I am by doing nothing. Because if I formed an identity around needing to do this or that in order to be as I am, I may then, and I had these conversations as well with individuals who are living this way now, the way we're talking about. They said to me at a particular point, they thought they continuously had to do those things which were once helpful. That's like saying you continuously need to ride with training wheels on your bicycle. No shame and condemnation for riding on training wheels, as they are very supportive to riding a bike. But yet, at a particular point, those training wheels can feel restrictive. But if the individual formed an identity around those training wheels, in other words, I need to have those training wheels, in this case we're saying you need to do this or that in order to be, they may force themselves now to use the training wheels, and it does not feel natural. It feels restrictive. They may say, I am afraid of. And then I say, that's okay. Know who you are. Abide as you are is that still I am presence. Be as you are. More so. And then what I see is, and we can even apply this to those that are afraid to take off the training wheels on their bike, is they say, I am not afraid. Interesting. Before they may have said, I am afraid, which is illusory. Only I can think in terms of fear. Yet the being I am is beyond fear. Now they know who they are because they said it. Not because I convinced them, but because they realized it. And they prove it to themselves. How so? They say, I am not afraid. I am not afraid. So I am not these illusions of lack, limitation. I do not need to try thus to be, want to be, need to be, wait to be, because I know that I am. And so that is why right now for you, you manifest them by not trying to manifest them. When I was having these conversations with clients, they would ask me, why is this the case now? Why was it so different before when we were growing up? And I articulated some points to them, and I said, I will make a video going into it with greater depth from my experience. And so I'm happy to share this with you today. Congratulations. You have realized who you are. And now you manifest them by not trying to manifest them. So I trust, or we could say, I know you found this video to be helpful as it acknowledges who you are. Let's conclude this with an autosuggestion to further acknowledge. You can say, I know that I am all that I desire to be. Thus, I know certainly the presence of God is that existence which is pure love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, as I abide as I am, doing nothing to be. Everything happens spontaneously. People appear spontaneously. Environments appear spontaneously. Behaviors appear spontaneously. Capabilities appear spontaneously to represent the being I am as perfect harmony, as perfect love, as perfect peace, as perfect bliss, as perfect fulfillment, as perfect happiness. Thus, I manifest the being I am. I manifest them by not trying to manifest them, as there is no try in being, as only God alone exists, playing all roles in perfect harmony. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.